Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is the teleconference, video conference meeting of the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency of September 9th. This is Director Doug Nichols and myself are here in the chambers. Directors Claudia Bill de la Pena, Ed Jones, and Chuck Huffer are all remoting in. I think we are ready for the salute to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Bill de la Pena.
Present.
Director Huffer.
Yes.
Director Jones.
Here.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Chair Skay.
Here. And I believe we do not have any public comments. Is that correct, Mr. Stark?
That is correct.
All right. We'll go on to the consent calendar, and that's the approval of minutes of the June 24th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I just had one question. I don't know if it's intentional or not. On the bottom of page 2 of the minutes, under C, where it starts out COSCA Administrator Stark, the very last line refers to the Ventura Wildfire Protection Plan. I wanted to make sure that was Ventura and not Ventura County. And I don't know if Mr. Stark recalls offhand. It's been some time since we looked at that, but I thought it was Ventura County.
So which page are we on again?
It's page 2 of the minutes. At the very bottom, the last line on the page refers to the Ventura Wildfire Protection Plan. And I thought it was Ventura County.
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Ventura County,
So just
all right.
that one change then to make it Ventura County Wildfire Protection Plan.
All right. With that change, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes with the correction.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Huffer. If no other discussion, please take the roll call on the consent calendar.
Vice Chair Bill de la Pena.
Yes.
Director Huffer.
Yes.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Chair Skay.
Yes. Next up, we have the authorization. This is item 6A, authorization to accept 83 open space parcels totaling 92.04 acres from the city of Thousand Oaks. Mr. Stark.
Madam Chair and members of the board, this item, as you said, is about acceptance of 83 parcels to be transferred from the city of Thousand Oaks. I have a brief slideshow to help explain the project. As background, acquisitions of open space properties have historically been completed either by the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency, the City of Thousand Oaks, or the Conejo Rec and Parks District. The COSCA Joint Powers Agreement and the COSCA Strategic Plan and City's General Plan all identify COSCA as the appropriate agency to ultimately own and manage open space for perpetual conservation. Staff has inventoried parcels that were purchased by the city or acquired through development agreements for open space and conservation in the Skyline, South Ranch, Dos Vientos, Valecito, and Southern Ridge open spaces, and determine which are intended to be transferred to COSCA but have not yet been approved for acceptance by the COSCA board. On August 25th of this year, the City Council approved transfer of 83 open space parcels to COSCA, and tonight the staff is recommending that COSCA accept these properties. So these are properties in the Skyline and South Ranch open space areas. The dark green areas are the ones that they've been previously open space. They're currently owned by the city, and these have been identified for transfer to COSCA. The light green parcels are those that are already owned by COSCA or already approved for transfer to COSCA. So there's a lot of them there. And over at Valecito, we have 4 parcels to transfer, a total of 66.74 acres. The top parcel in this map was inadvertently left off of the exhibit in your staff report. although it was listed in the table in the staff report, and the acreage was listed in the tally of final acreage. So I added it just for clarity in this presentation. And out in Dos Vientos, there's 2 parcels to transfer, 1.18 acres of open space. The properties proposed for transfer can be found in Table 1 in the staff report. The listed properties all contain land with conservation value and are free of known title defects and do not contain manufactured slopes, drainage structures, or other public infrastructure. The parcels with public infrastructure will remain in city ownership, although they may still essentially be open space. Transferring these properties implements the following objectives and listed in the COSCA strategic plan. Section 1. Objective 1.4, consolidating ownership of open space in the Conejo Valley. 6.1, continuing COSCA's leadership role in open space conservation while working with other agencies like the city and organizations and volunteers. And objective 6.4, working with other agencies to strengthen our collaboration on open space issues. The proposed transfers also implement Open Space Policy 20 of the open space element of the city's general plan, which recommends transfer of most open space parcels that are owned by the city to COSCA for consistent management over time. Based on the information presented, staff recommends accepting the listed properties into COSCA ownership. And that is all I have for you, and I'm willing to take questions now if you have some.
All right. Are there questions of staff? Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stark, thank you for the clarification on some of these issues. I did have one question on the exhibit with the Skyline Drive parcels. There's a number of small lots from a former subdivision. Is there any intention in the future to consolidate those into a contiguous single lot?
The short answer is yes. So these have been acquired over a long period of time. Some were already owned by COSCA. So once all the ownership is consolidated with COSCA, that'll make it much easier to do a merger. And since that's the open space area with the most number of small lots, that will likely be the first of the consolidation projects that will probably begin later this year.
Very good. Thank you. That was it, Madam Chair. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Any other questions of the board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Director
This is
Bildo.
Claudia Bildo La Pena, City of Thousand Oaks. I wanted to see, are we having technical difficulties? Because I couldn't see any of the slideshows and I couldn't see Mr. Stark either.
Yes, I believe there's some issues with the Zoom.
So we will not be able to see any of the slide presentations or staff presentations for the evening?
I do not know. We will have to check with the people in the booth.
The exhibit,
This is Michelle. IT and TOTV are working on it as we speak.
and I
All right,
will
thank
note, Director Bildo La Pena, that the exhibits are as in the board packet.
Yes.
We were told that at least one of the exhibits was missing something, so.
That
I
was,
can-
And Madam
can-
Chair, I have a hard time hearing you as well.
okay. Mr. Stark, can you explain the Dos Vientos, or rather the Vallecito
Yes, so
difference?
in the staff report, you have attachment 1 that's labeled Vallecito Open Space. You will see 3 dark green parcels on that map. And just above those, there's a larger light green parcel that was inadvertently left out of this exhibit. So that has been added in the graphic that I showed tonight.
So basically, it looks like almost a letter E of all dark green around the mobile home park.
I'll note, though, that the acreage and the parcel were listed in the table in the staff report already. It was just a graphic mistake.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Director Huffer.
just a question about all the parcels, but I guess particularly the Skyline parcels. Although we're being asked to approve the transfers from the city to COSCA this evening, do these parcels already appear on the city's open space map as open space?
Yes, they do. And so COSCA has already been managing these properties as open space, so they don't represent a new addition or burden on COSCA. This is an administrative step of consolidating the ownership.
Okay, and then a second question, again, on the Skyline properties. There appear to be 3 parcels on the north side of Skyline Drive that are not open space. Are we in negotiations or anticipating negotiations in obtaining those 3 parcels, or what's the status of those 3?
I would probably have to look those up, but these are some that are privately owned parcels, and we purchase our properties by working with willing sellers. So in some cases, we are still waiting for willing sellers in some of these cases. Some of the other parcels, empty parcels mixed in here, are those that might have come up with title defects, such that making their acquisition uncertain. We wouldn't know what we were getting there. So sometimes these parcels, have some defects that make them less attractive to own.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions, or do we have a motion to accept?
I'll move we accept parcels.
Thank you, Director Jones. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Nichols. If no other discussion, may we have the roll call vote?
Vice Chair Bill de la Peña,
Yes.
Director Huffer,
Yes,
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Chair Skay.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll go on to item B, authorization to accept a 10-foot wide multipurpose trail easement to provide access into the Glider Hill open space area.
COSCA analyst Anna Huber will be taking this item on behalf of COSCA
All
staff.
right, Ms. Huber, go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, Chair Skay and members of the board. I have a brief PowerPoint. COSCA's Trail Master Plan identifies locations throughout the city where trails exist and are planned. In some cases, planned trails occur over undeveloped privately owned property. In these instances, staff coordinates with the city's Community Development Department to secure a trail easement at the planned trail location when a development application is submitted for that particular parcel. In this case, the COSCA conditions for the project at 612 Lone Oak Drive indicate that the existing informal access into the Glider Hill open space area is to be preserved. The Glider Hill open space area is located above and to the east of 612 Lone Oak Drive, which is shown in this slide in the red outline. Informal access from Erbs Road to the Glider Hill open space area has existed for several decades. Over the years, staff has worked with various landowners whose properties intersect the informal trail to secure public trail easements to formally preserve the historical access. To date, staff has secured 2 of the 5 easements necessary to complete this access route. In this slide, the easement area currently before you is shown in white. The existing trail is shown in a red dashed line. The proposed trail is shown as a green dashed line, and the yellow dashed line shows informal alignments that will be abandoned. Easements and other stages of completion are identified in the map legend for you. This is just a quick slide showing the easement area in more specific detail. And this trail segment is an important component of the broader trail network in the Conejo Oaks area, and maintaining this access route is important to area residents. Accepting the easement at 612 Lone Oak will help to preserve the historic access, as well as providing direct access from the end of Lone Oak Drive into the Glider Hill open space area. And with that, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Board
I
member?
have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Director Jones.
I wonder if we could put the map back up on the screen there that we had before. So,
There we go.
yeah, in reading the staff report, I got the impression that with this easement, we would be gaining, if we approve this tonight, one would have to ride his horse up Lone Oak Drive to the end to get on the trail. Do I perceive that correctly? My preference would be, since if a person is in Conejo Oaks and wants to go over to that easement of that property that we're considering right now, would he have to go over to Lone Oak Drive, which runs off of Hillcrest, and then go up Lone Oak to there? Or could he go up from Herbs through this red dashed line that we see that leads up to the yellow area and then goes forward? In other words, is what we're doing tonight going to help access from Herbs Road, or is it only from Lone Oak Road?
Thank you, Director Jones. What we're doing tonight will definitely help access from Herbs. This is a multi-component process. And actually, if we could see that slide again, that I think with having that visual will be helpful. So you can see that there are a lot of different colors here. So for some of these trail segments, we already have easements completed. Other easements are in the works, including this one. So finalizing this one will bring us one step closer to completing the entire access route from Herbs Road up into Glider Hill.
Well, if I were on a horse down at Hauser and Herbs, what would I have to do to get to this parcel that we're contemplating receiving, and then on up to the top of Glider Hill?
Well, presently, there is an informal access route, and we are attempting to preserve access in a formal way. So ideally, because we don't have formal access approved yet through some of the other parcels, one would have to go the longer way around as you described. However, we have 2 sections left to complete, and we have initiated communication with both parties and are looking forward to be able to bring those to completion in the next several months.
Can you indicate on this map what those 2 parcels are?
So, okay, so do you see the orange, the orange section with the green dashed lines in it?
Well, I see red and yellow and blue.
Okay, so right to the left of the blue section.
Yeah.
Do you see that big house?
Just below the big.
Just below the blue section?
Yes,
Okay, so right to the left of that blue section is a little orange section that we need to finish. And then to the left of that, where that red line is, that having an easement there was a condition for a past SUP on that particular parcel. And we're looking to locate the record for that. It may be that we need to record that one as well. But those are the last 2 links, and then this entire access route will be finally complete.
Yeah, well, I hadn't realized that you needed the one before us tonight. I knew that we needed the other 2 to get up from Herbs Road. if we don't have the other two and a writer wants to utilize what we're getting when we approve this tonight, he would have to go down Herbs to Hillcrest, then over the north side of Hillcrest to Lone Oak, and then up Lone Oak. Isn't that the only way that person could go, that equestrian?
Right now, because we don't have the remaining sections of the historical route formally approved. However, since there are multiple property owners involved, as we complete negotiations with them, it's helpful with regard to moving the project forward to
I didn't think to do that.
complete those components as we're able.
Yeah, I understand that.
Great, thanks.
We're on the way.
We're definitely on the way. It would be nice to do them all in once, but that's because we have various property owners to deal with. We're needing to do them one at a time.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that if somebody wants to utilize what we've done tonight, or what I believe we will do, excuse me, he'd have to ride his horse from Hauser Circle down Herbs, probably a half a mile to Hillcrest, then over Hillcrest, which is a very busy street, to Lone Oak, and then up Lone Oak. I'm just wondering, would we advise an equestrian to do that?
No, we would. Well, there is not probably a safe equestrian route down Herbs because there's only the paved street and a sidewalk.
Yes.
Ms. Huber, may I clarify? At this point, property owners have not blocked off any of these informal and as yet not in public ownership trails. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So they are being used informally by equestrians now.
That's possible.
Okay. But we do want
Okay,
to make
well,
it
I
legal.
just didn't want people to be riding horses on Herbs and Hillcrest if they could avoid it.
Are there any
If
other?
there's an informal way to get up there and they can get away with it, that's fine with me.
Are there any other board comments? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Huber, thank you for the explanation of the graphic. It was very colorful, but I was still having a challenge understanding it, so thank you for that. I did have a question. In the packet, there is a supplemental memo from May of 2019 referring to the conditions for this trail as part of a hillside plan development. Since this is just a single lot, was the development just a single-family dwelling on this parcel?
Yes, it is.
And
the conditions included in your packet shown as attachment 1, those are the COSCA conditions for that particular project
okay.
at 612 Lone Oak.
And since this trail goes right through the middle of the property, I presume that the home is going to be built on one side or the other of the trail. Is that correct?
Yes, the home is being built closest to the cul-de-sac or the end of Lone Oak, which is south of the trail, and the location of the trail easement has been established with full cooperation of the property owner.
Okay. And it appears as though from the conditions that the property owner is also obligated for all the easement, the design, and trail construction. Is that correct?
Yes, we're following what's in the conditions.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Director Nichols. Any other board questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Thank you,
I'll
Director.
second.
Thank you, Director Jones. And just by way of discussion, I do remember that we had many meetings of the COSCA board where equestrians have come before us to say, can you please get formal access to Glider Hill? So thank you, Ms. Huber. All right, if there are no other questions, please have the roll call.
Vice Chair Bill de la Peña?
She may have had to drop off.
Absent. Okay. Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Chair Skay.
Yes. And now we have approval of appropriation of the Southern California Edison funds for community outreach improvements. Mr. Stark?
Microphone on here. Madam Chair and members of the board, this item is to seek a funding appropriation for COSCA's outreach program. I have a brief slideshow. Like most open space agencies, COSCA's ability to manage a large open space system depends on sharing an open space and outdoor ethic with our community. Having the shared outdoor ethic encourages positive outdoor behaviors and keeps problems manageable. Ultimately, this is more effective than an enforcement approach. With new users coming outdoors, we have new people to welcome with our shared ethics. This proposal addresses this need by investing in updates to COSCA's community outreach program. A high priority is updating the COSCA website. A current and updated website gives COSCA the capacity to share the most important information about our community needs. The website also provides an opportunity for COSCA to share background information about COSCA's conservation and land management programs and how management decisions are made. Added content will include practical information about how to safely get the most out of your visit to COSCA Open Space. It's also an opportunity to engage the community through volunteerism and enhancing the integration of our website with our social media platforms will support getting crucial information out to the public quickly when needed. Some other projects that we've talked about are to update our brochures. We have several, and the statistics of our land holdings are out of date, so this is mostly on modernizing of our brochures. We're looking at doing some community fire safety outreach, and we're seeking partners in the community of other organizations to work with. We'll be looking at creation of a regionally branded smartphone app. This is in an early development idea, but it's one way that agencies in Los Angeles County have been able to very effectively communicate up-to-date trail information directly to their users. So the COSCA staff therefore recommends, back at our last board meeting on June, that was 24th, I believe, the COSCA board approved a framework for allocation of Woolsey Fire Recovery funds that included a set of funds for community outreach for purposes just like this. This project implements multiple objectives in COSCA's strategic plan, and staff recommends appropriation of $30,000 to enhance the outreach programs. And I'll take any questions if you have them.
One clarification, is it 30,000? The staff report says 25. Is it updating?
Well, to clarify, it's 30.
Okay. We'll make it 30. All right. Any board questions of Mr. Stark? Director Nichols.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that clarification on that. Mr. Stark, in the background section, there's a statement made that COSCA's primary connections to the community are through the website and social media accounts. What data has been used to determine that in fact is the source of primary connections?
Well, it's the medium that we use most frequently to get the information out. Traditional news media is a little bit harder to get out, rapidly with information. We do track the interactions we have with our social media platforms. So we're in some of our more recent activities with temporary closures. We were having our messages distributed to hundreds of thousands of people throughout Southern California. We just can't reach that number of people personally, but that's the kind of data we're using, is the tracking statistics on our website and social media platforms.
But do you have any comparison as to who you reach through standard media, brochures, letters, print?
It's hard to say.
Media as a comparison to social media?
The brochures are probably a smaller reach. You know, those are happening in a personal context, or they're informal through, you know, picking one up in the lobby of the city hall or such. So it's harder to track exactly what attention we get from some of these other media where we don't get those kind of tracking metrics.
Okay, so it sounds to me like it's kind of a practical experience that you are using to make this determination, that you don't have a study per se that says 80% of our connections come through social media.
No,
it's
it's not.
just basic from your day-to-day experiences that's where it seems to be generated.
Yes. And it's also, it's a shared experience not just of COSCA, but of open space agencies regionally. So we're in touch with others and have discussed different ways that they're reaching out and getting information to people too. And, you know, the success in Los Angeles County with their outreach programs has been instructional and motivating.
Okay. And then also, you mentioned that the framework that we reviewed last time included an outreach mechanism. Was this the amount that was proposed as far as the total outreach funds?
No, this is a small fraction of it. It's less than 10%.
Okay, so this is just a portion. I just didn't remember offhand what that was. Okay. And then also, you made a note here that the community is becoming more diverse. Is that also data-driven or just, you know, feet-on-the-ground observations?
Those are feet-on-the-ground observations and feedback we're getting from our volunteer reports. Yeah, we've also spent a lot of time out on the open space, and like most of our regional open space management agencies here, we've had a large influx of new visitors. So, and that increase, you know, represents a greater cross-section of our community.
Has there been any discussion to have a COSCA type of community survey, much like the city of Thousand Oaks does, to track the trends from the user groups, especially if there's such an emphasis on social media?
We have recently designed a survey just for that purpose, and it will be deployed through our trailhead outreach volunteers and also through notices at the trailheads. So it's an online survey that people can scan the QR code with their phone and access that. We can start collecting more of that information to help with our management planning.
Yeah, I think it'd be very helpful. That's a good idea. Thank you.
That should launch within the month.
Okay. And then you were referring to shared outdoor ethic, which I wholeheartedly agree. It's been a real value that we've had here in the Conejo Valley for many years because of the the makeup of our community. And yet with this last spring, we noticed quite a change with the incidents at Paradise Falls, which seems to be people that don't necessarily share those same ethics. So how do you target reaching those groups or those individuals which don't appear to share those ethics?
Well, I think I wouldn't suppose that people are not acting as if they knew what this outreach ethic is. I think we have to reach out and provide information on what that ethic involves to engage people. We center our outreach on the 7 principles of leave no trace, and we promote them fairly heavily in our social media platforms. And I think it's just through a repetition and various and creative ways that we reinforce that there are ways to visit the outdoors with very little impact. And most of us that do have an outdoor ethic gained it by working with others and learning it as we're out there. So I wouldn't suppose that people are willfully not being present with these ethics. I think we have to educate and that's part of the purpose of this program.
Okay. And then one last question. You have a bulleted list here that the products such as, is the intention that $30,000 will cover all the items that have a bullet here next to them?
It may not, but it gets us through most of what we need. Some things that have higher price points, like a customized phone app, is something that we would recommend working with other regional agencies on and develop a partnership approach. So we hope that our contribution won't necessarily foot the whole thing, but we think that it'll benefit other regional agencies in Ventura County. In Los Angeles County, theirs is a consortium of 26 different agencies. We don't have that many agencies up here, but I think if we work together, we could do something that's more where the benefits kind of go beyond just COSCA and the Conejo Valley.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, because I was going to say that's very ambitious and really stretching the dollar to do that, but I commend you for a good effort, and we look forward to the results of that. But thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other board questions of Mr. Stark?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Director Huffer.
Brian is talking about the website and said going to be utilizing a new software platform. Is this website update something that's going to be done internally or externally?
It's likely that we'll be seeking some external assistance in developing the basic templating. Yeah, we do have to move to a new software platform for its development because the one we're using now is no longer supported by its maker. So but what we endeavor to have created is a content management system that's easy to update locally and that we're able to control the content and change it rapidly when needed. So we don't anticipate, turning the site over to an outside group. This is mainly a development phase, and then we will manage it from there on out.
Okay, then you're talking about being able to update the website fairly nimbly, I guess. Is it you or staff members who are able to do those updates? And who would have access to updating the website and making sure that the same updates are correspondingly updated on various social media? Because I know there are other agencies that I've seen where one person's responsible for updating the website, the second person updates Facebook, and a third person updates Twitter, and you get mixed messages or completely contrary messages.
Fortunately, COSCA staff is well integrated in this. COSCA analyst Huber manages the website content and social media. We do have social media access myself and through a ranger. But the posting is coordinated through myself and Anna. Okay.
And do you have any time frame as to when we might see the new website?
Well, it's hard to tell. We need this approval first before I can seek possible contractors. I don't think it's going to be a terribly long time. I'd be guessing, but, within the quarter.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll just mention that regarding shared ethic of open space, that's a topic all over all the park agencies. At the last Conservancy Board meeting, Jerry Perez, who's the Angeles Forest Supervisor, said that they've been hammered just because there's so much pent-up need to get out into the open space and people coming from all over that don't know what to do. So I think all the agencies are trying to make sure that our social media, our Facebook pages, or whatever, our directions are all geared to trying to help people understand the best way to utilize open space and trails. It's an ongoing issue for sure. And yes, the LA County Parks and Rec has their trailsla.org site, which does cover all the agencies in LA County. I think they may show some, at least some connections into COSCA Open Space. But that's a very robust platform that incorporates all kinds of good information. And if there's any way, I don't think we want to be quite that ambitious, but if we have something where people on a phone can figure out, okay, is this trail open? What are the parameters? Is it going to be too difficult for me and my 3-year-old? You know, all those things you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions or a motion to adopt?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize staff to expend up to $30,000 of funds for the outreach program.
And I will second that.
Thank you, Director Bill de la Pena. If no other comments, may we have the roll call?
Vice Chair Bill de la Pena,
Yes?
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Chair Skay.
Yes. And that completes our action items. Let's go on to the COSCA update on COVID-19. Mr. Stark?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have a quick verbal update on COVID-19 related activities at COSCA. First, COSCA has lifted all COVID-related open space closures, and this includes closures caused by resource damage due to pandemic-related increases in open space visitation. Safety protocols are in place for both field staff and administrative staff. These include wearing face coverings and practicing social distancing. The situation with safety procedures is a little more acute in our field operations due to the diversity of their tasks, and has impacted some of their ability to do some projects. COSCA field staffing has fluctuated some due to COVID-related absences. This has resulted in some reduced field staffing availability. We've been able to do some schedule shifting with support from other rangers and doing some overtime to cover our shortages. Matt will have a little bit more information on field activities in his report. All of our organized group volunteer events, such as the Fall Trail Workday, have been canceled to prevent large assemblies of people. But volunteers for our Trail Watch and Adopted Trail are still active in providing reports, as these activities are more solitary and do not involve group activities. The largest impact of COVID on COSCA has really been the growth in the numbers of people accessing our open space. Our open space and trails provide benefits for both physical and mental health, and in the absence of other activities, people are turning to the outdoors. As we discussed earlier, many of our new visitors are less experienced with hike preparation and other principles of the leave no trace ethic, and this has been illustrated by increases in the volume of trash left on trails and parking lots, more hiker rescues for heat illness and dehydration, a little less consideration for our neighbors with, loud music in their cars and talking, and generally more work for rangers at a time when COSCA staffing is stretched rather thin. While not solely a COVID effect, COSCA did close open spaces for 2 days over this past holiday weekend to reduce the number of rescue calls coming into the fire department. And I think this is a sign that many were unprepared for their visit to the outdoors in harsh weather, or simply unaware of the inherent danger of hiking in high heat. COSCA has been using our social media accounts to share leave no trace ethics and to share how people can better prepare for their time in the outdoors. And I can take any questions you have on that if you have any.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stark, as I mentioned earlier, we had quite the a crowd admiring and enjoying the Paradise Falls in unfortunately ways that we don't typically condone. Is there any need to take any further action to prevent that type of activity on a more permanent basis, or is there some level of I guess, casual understanding that seems to be working, or is that part of your outreach program?
Well, it will remain part of our outreach program. With the summer heat, the visitation rates have been coming down a little bit, and I think we are getting more compliance with the rules out there. at this time, we're not really considering any, separate permanent actions. It's mainly we're monitoring it because, as we've noticed throughout the kind of the COVID experience, things change rapidly and problems come and go, and so it's a great monitoring activity that we're doing, and we're always kind of saying, well, where do you put your finger next, But we know that we have a lot of support in the community from the people that do care, and people pay attention, and we get a lot of citizen reports of what's going on, and we're able to use that information along with our volunteer reports and our ranger reports together to get a pretty good picture of what's happening out on the open space. And when we start having problems, we try and get on them, before they get worse.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
So for a fire safety update, I've got a short, or a slide basically, that I'm just going to leave up for this, that has important information for our community. Each year, particularly in the summer months, COSCA receives inquiries regarding our defensible space program and steps taken to reduce local fire threats. This evening, I will briefly share some information about COSCA's efforts to reduce fire risk and available resources that the community can use to protect their homes. It's important to know that the entire Conejo Valley is considered a high risk for wildfires due to the nature of our dominant vegetation communities and the interaction of climate effects and our topography. This is not a new condition, however. We've pretty much always been a high fire danger area. In addition, the Ventura County Fire Department has indicated that fire season is now year-round, and because of that, everybody in the Conejo Valley should be prepared for fire and have a plan for what they will do when fire is near. Protecting homes from wildfires is a community partnership between the Ventura County Fire Department, open space managers like COSCA, homeowners and residents, and entire neighborhoods, and each must play a role in fire protection. Oops, I lost my slide here. The Ventura County Fire Department's role is to manage firefighting and other public resources to protect lives and property. While it's the simplest role to understand, it's probably the most complex to actually implement. Their job can be made easier by the actions taken by other community partners. COSCA's role as an open space agency is to assist firefighters and homeowners by reducing fuel density in the area immediately adjacent to structures. We work in what is called the defensible space buffer, which is described in the current Ventura County Fire Code as the area within 100 feet of homes and 10 feet from public roads. The defensible space buffer is intended to provide a safer place for firefighters to do their work. Buffers also prevent structure ignition caused by direct flames and radiant heat. Each year, COSCA receives brush clearance orders from the Ventura County Fire Department for all open space areas that are adjacent to residential development. These orders are identical to those received by private landowners. COSCA partners with the City of Thousand Oaks, the Conejo Recreation and Park District, and the Conejo Unified School District to undertake fuel management on public lands. Each year, the partner agencies implement fuel modification on approximately 425 acres. We work closely with the fire department, and all of our open space areas are thoroughly inspected by the fire department to ensure that the work complies with the fire protection standards. Homeowners and other residents do have an important role to play as well, probably the most important. Locally, structure losses from recent fires have been attributed to ember ignition rather than from direct radiant heat or flames. Ember ignition is a function of high winds that carry embers to locations far from the fire front. Depending on the winds, these embers may travel several miles. Fire research has shown that the most crucial space for preventing home ignition from embers is the 30 feet immediately adjacent to the home. Building design and materials are other important factors in making a home fire safe. Local homeowners are encouraged to take active steps to ember-proof their homes and yards. The Ventura County Fire Department has published guidance on how homeowners can improve the resilience of their homes, and this information is available on the fire department's website. COSCA also provides this information and more information on our fire safety page on our own website. Homeowners are also encouraged to discuss these steps with their neighbors or their HOAs as well, as a single home ignition greatly increases the chances that other nearby homes will ignite. A community of neighbors working together can protect more homes. COSCA's wildfire website is organized around frequently asked questions. A common question that comes up is, why don't we make our defensible space zones wider through either more manual vegetation removal or use of livestock such as goats? While this may seem a simple solution, an extensive body of scientific wildfire research has concluded that in wind-driven fires, additional vegetation removal beyond 100 feet does not yield additional protection for homes. In the Woolsey fire, for example, the fire easily jumped 8 lanes of paved freeway, roughly 300 feet in width, through Ember transport. And the same can happen on open space land. Disturbing land by removing vegetation over large areas also does significant damage to vital habitat areas. Our local vegetation communities, while adapted to fire, are vulnerable to frequent disturbance. The result of frequent vegetation removal is often the permanent conversion of the land to weedier plant communities that favor more flammable species which carry fire more easily. Removal of vegetation from steep land also increases erosion and instability of this land. COSCA has the duty to protect and enhance native plant communities that create habitats for local wildlife and to prevent erosion impacts on our neighbors. And this is why we are not removing more vegetation than what is useful. We would like to encourage those with additional questions about COSCA's fire damage reduction programs, as well as how to make their own property more resilient to wildfire, to review our fire safety webpage shown on the slide. I also have some links I've put on the slide here too from the Ventura County Fire Department. They have excellent resources on home hardening. The Central Ventura County Fire Safe Council is also hosting classes on an ongoing basis where residents can learn how, in a very practical and structured way, how they can help improve the chances of their homes surviving a wildfire. And again, the University of California Cooperative Extension also has some excellent resources that we recommend. With that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Do we have questions? Director
Yes.
Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stark, thank you for that. I'd love to get that written version. Somehow you covered so much information. I was trying to take some notes. I did have a question, however. I don't know if this is something that's readily available or something that perhaps could be pursued. We do get comments from homeowners and concerned park users, as you mentioned, about fire safety in the open space. And I know that we rely on the fire department to identify those areas. Is there some type of an exhibit that can be prepared that indicates where fuel modification is performed on open space, that homeowners can see if in fact it has, not that it's been done in a particular year, but that it has been identified as one of those areas that is subject to hazard abatement, so they can get an idea of where this activity takes place? They may or may not be home when the weed eater comes by or the tractor comes by, and to see what the goal is, over the course of the season, because sometimes it starts earlier in the year or the later. It might be helpful as a tool just to refer to, so people know what areas are intended to be removed of any fire hazards.
So COSCA does have all of the fuel modification areas mapped, so conceivably that could be made available. We can look into that. The mapping is an important part of our overall project management too. It allows us to track how much we're doing, and it's vital to the contracting of the work. So yes, we do track this information. Not all of the properties adjacent to, or what people might perceive as being adjacent to open space, are actually owned by COSCA, because in a lot of cases the defensible space buffer areas during the larger developments were left with the HOAs. So we do take phone calls and are able to make maps and show people the extent of our work, so we can work with our team and see about getting a map together for that.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful, and that was also part of my question, although I didn't state it, was that there are homeowner association-owned or private land that's owned,
Yes.
lots, that COSCA is not responsible for everything, and I think it would help to clarify as to where those areas of responsibility lie. So if that could be made available, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You bet. I will mention it should be live sometime later this fall. There will be a really excellent web-based information, bunch of information called Sustainable Defensible Landscaping, and it'll be defensiblespace.org, being put together by a consortium, the Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Mountains, and other agencies have all been meeting quite frequently to develop this. It'll be really beautiful. Basically, it will describe and graphically that 5 feet from your house there should be nothing. 30 feet, what you can plant lists, erosion issues, water saving issues. I think it'll be a really good tool for both homeowners and for agencies. Are there any other comments from other board members? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Stark. Very timely. Let's go on to Ms. Huber and the volunteer corps activity.
Thank you, Chair Skay, and I have a brief PowerPoint. With regard to the Trail Watch and Trail Adoption programs, we logged the following hours from June through August of this year. Trail Watch had 166 reports and 292 hours donated, and Adopt a Trail had 78 reports and 185 hours donated. We very much appreciate the efforts of our dedicated volunteers, especially in these times, as their work is integral to our open space management efforts. And with that, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Are there questions about the volunteer activity of Ms. Huber? Hearing none. Again, thank you, volunteers. Really, really important. Mr. Kuba, Ranger Operations and Maintenance Activities.
Hello, everyone. I have a PowerPoint I'd like to share. And some of this was alluded to earlier in Brian's about this past weekend. And we did have multiple rescues on COSCA open space and the adjoining Santa Monica Mountains. And the fire department did ask us specifically and the other agencies to please close down the trails due to the drawdown of resources. So we did that. The Rangers were able to basically get signage on all our main lots within about 2 hours, and then did try and maintain closure through Sunday. However, there were still 3 additional rescues on Sunday. And this leads back to kind of what Brian was saying, that we need to have some more education for people to know to not go into open space in over 100-degree weather without proper water and food and such. So, and the pets, there were lots of dog rescues. The Rangers were just handing out water to people for the dogs. So it was a really rough weekend, and the Rangers really stepped up. Next slide, Brian. This is another little sequence here. I know many of you have been on the whole access trail over the past years, and we only have a few oak trees left there. That canyon has just dried up, and we're losing 3 to 5 big oak trees a year there, and it's sad. When we do remove a tree like this, we clear the trail. We want the biosources to stay there. So typically it'll get cut like you see in this photo, and the debris pushed off to the sides to provide habitat for things. Things don't just eat plants, they live inside of them. And so that's really good habitat for things. So, good stuff. Next. Oh, okay. Yeah, so graffiti removal. And we always talk about the power washers and chemical removals, but there's another technique that we use. And I wanted to show you, and I blurred the graffiti. We don't want to justify anybody's graffiti, but so this was on a retaining wall on one of the trails. Next slide. And I saw, wow, that's a really good job. And I thought, wow, that dragging a pressure washer there must have been tough. And then I saw the next picture, and the Rangers have a little suitcase full of different colored paints, and they get very artistic with mixing the spray paints to combat the graffiti. So there's some really creative thinking going on there with the Rangers. Next. Okay, so this little guy right here, this is down at the cave, and I don't think I've ever seen a side blotch lizard, a western fence lizard this fat and happy. So they're doing well with the insects this year. And I'm going to leave that slide up right now while I have something I want to say about our COVID response. And so I'm going to say this. I always try and highlight the accomplishments of the Rangers since we last spoke. And I think I'm trying to do that with what I'm going to say here. And please hear this in the most positive tone that I intend. As the board knows, a fully staffed COSCA, there are 7 Rangers, including the Lean Ranger, and 1 open space tech available to work any given week, providing dawn to dusk coverage 365 days a year. This late spring and summer season was very busy for the Rangers as usual because of the staffing hours are spread over more hours of daylight than in the winter. Plus, it's also our brush clearance, trail clearance. There's more people on the trail. And this summer, the COVID summer, has really shown me a couple things. How great our COSCA Rangers are, and the city and CRPD staff are, and how supportive they are of open space, and how this increased utilization has really stretched our field staff during this challenging time. More time has been scheduled every day for the Rangers to be in the field with the public instead of doing projects, because there are more people out there. The Rangers are essential workers. Gyms have been closed, so fitness and health conscious people are recreating outdoors. And many, many new faces are walking, trail running, mountain biking on the COSCA trails. And as we learned this weekend, how many of them are inexperienced. But they are discovering the mental and physical health benefits of spending time in nature. The ability of Thousand Oaks residents to quickly get on a trail and into nature is an amazing benefit during these COVID times. So needless to say, COSCA staff in general and the Rangers in particular have been especially busy. The extra work related to COVID, posting hundreds of signs at trailheads, trail closures, openings, sometimes in the last minute, crowd control, graffiti removal, COVID protocols, cleaning, interacting with new users, looking for help about and information about places they've never been, as well as concerns raised by citizens who are spending more time in open space. And so they're seeing more stuff happening, which has increased the contacts for the Rangers. And through all of this, the Rangers have experienced their own typical absences due to family issues, injuries, illness, et cetera, and training. And in short, the ranks of the Rangers have been stretched thin. We have occasionally had to function with 50% staff for a day at a time, and that's challenging. Keep in mind, when a single Ranger is out of the office for a week due to illness or COVID, that equates to a 14% drop in our weekly staffing, and could mean, like I said, up to 50% of shortage on a given day. There are weeks when we've had multiple CRPD employees coming out and helping to do the basic opening of the gates that we can, or emptying trash cans in the peripheral parks. So I really want to thank the CRPD staff for doing that. And we've also had Rangers working overtime. Luckily, we have a couple Rangers that have relatively free schedules, and they've been able to come out and help. Anna and I went out and flagged that Lone Oak Trail because we didn't have any Rangers available to help out with that. Our efficacy is actually further curtailed because of the precautions that we take for COVID. we only allow one staff person in a truck. That's at CRPD and at COSCA. We also have to have the face coverings, which is really difficult in the heat, and the social distancing during projects really makes it difficult. So it's really slowed down even the projects we've been able to get to. We've been tracking our COVID-19 response hours in CRPD and COSCA, and we have over 600 full-time equivalent ranger hours that have been spent on COVID alone. So that's basically one full-time ranger has been working on COVID this whole spring and summer. As a former park ranger, we've always been able to overcome adversity in the ranger program, and I'm proud of that. We will continue to do it through we've continued to do it through the past 6 months, and we will continue to meet the challenge. And I want to close by saying I'm very proud of our ranger staff and their commitment to open space. And so thank you, and here comes your sunset. If you go back to the PowerPoint, please. There it is.
Okay.
It's smoke-free. It's a smoke-free sunset.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kuba. And yes, our ranger force, they are heroic. No question about it at all times, but especially these past few months. And we do so much appreciate everything they're doing. It's not easy, for sure. Any other comments or questions from board members?
Rory, I can't hear you.
Oh dear, I'll try and get closer to the mic. I was just saying our rangers are heroic, for sure. And are there any other comments from?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Huff.
I'd like to add my thanks to the entire ranger staff and to Matt's leadership. It just, what you guys have been doing is incredible. It seemed early on, particularly, you guys were going out and posting and reposting and removing and replacing signs on an almost daily basis. I wish I'd bought stock in a sign store, but that's water over the dam. I heard today, and I can't remember if it was National Forests or one of the entities in the state has been apparently shut down statewide due to fire concerns. Has there been any concern or discussion about our open space or neighboring open space being closed down due to fire concerns?
I can
You got it, Brian, or you want me?
you can go ahead.
Okay, we have protocols for closing for fire danger. It has to be a red flag warning, and also include a resource drawdown, like we saw this last weekend from Ventura County, working arsonist in the area, and there's a couple other things in there, but basically it needs to meet 2 or 3 of those before we'd actually shut down our open space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to compliment Mr. Kuba on the report and on the spirit that he evidences and the spirit of the Rangers and all the other CRPD people. We've always had, in my opinion, we've always had a spirit here in the Conejo Valley of one for all and all for one. And I think that this typifies it to the highest degree. And I wish that, I'd wish to compliment everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Jones. Hear, hear.
Chair Ski, this is Gary Rogers.
Yes, go ahead, Gary.
Thank you. Matt really understated the efforts that the field crews have been making, and I can't say enough how incredibly responsive they've been. You think about the environmental challenges we're facing, the increased visitation both by residents and people from out of the area, and then you throw a pandemic on top of that. Really, Matt, Kuba, the Rangers, the CRPD staff, Anna Huber, Brian Stark, Jim Friedel, Alexander South in the city manager's office at the city has also been helping with some social media. The entire team, incredibly responsive, pivoting on a dime, for issues that come up. And it's happened on a number of occasions, both with trail closures for various reasons. And I as well can't say enough about how proud I am and what an honor it is to have them advocating for our open space. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Absolutely, great words. And then that takes us to any updates from Gary, Deputy City Manager, or Jim Friedel, General Manager of CRPD. Gentlemen, did you have anything?
Not from me.
Okay. Jim, anything?
Well, if I would specifically mention something about CRPD, we are still here and doing things despite the COVID challenges. The most, of course, our parks are all still open and operating. Community centers remain closed to drop-in use. And I just lost lighting. Oh, there it goes. Closed to drop-in use, but they are being used for kind of, we call it quarantine, and it's within the COVID protocols. We're doing essentially kind of a combination daycare, childcare to help out with the schools. So the centers are all being used, but they're being used in a different way than we have used them traditionally. So now they're kind of becoming support centers for kids whose parents really need to be at work all day. And, you know, we're kind of doing some of that, all within, of course, the COVID protocols. The interesting challenges remain, though, with our business is a lot of gathering of people with the rec side, you know, community events and all of the programming. So that remains a challenge. And then just for fun, this Thursday and all through the rest of the month of September, we have partnered with the Chamber of Commerce and will be having something we call Dinner in the Park, where you can pre-order a meal. The restaurants will be distributing the meals, and then you can either eat the meal in the park or take it to go home or eat it wherever you want. But we're kicking that off in conjunction with the Chamber this Thursday. So you'd have to look at the Conejo Chamber's website to find out more on that. But with that, I am available for questions.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Friedel? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Board member comments. Going once?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Director Heffer.
I just have to throw this in since Matt is always giving us sunset pictures. I just had to throw in a sunrise picture. Went out like 6 a.m. Saturday morning before it got hot, and this is the Santa Rosa Trail. Just the sun coming up over the Santa Rosa Trail. So anyway, back at you, Matt.
Very intrepid of you, Director Heffer. 6 a.m. no less. All right, thank you. Then that means we can adjourn to our next scheduled meeting, which is Wednesday, November 18th. Thank you all very much.